Hey everyone, what's up? Thank you so much for tuning in on another episode of Catch Up with Kestner. If this is your first time watching, this is a podcast where I catch up with old friends and reconnect with them, talking to them about their different careers, lifestyles, and experiences. If you like what you hear, you find anything inspirational from it, please like, share, and subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate your support. On this next episode, we have Andrew Tran. Let's get right into it. All right. Welcome back to the next episode of Catch Up with Kestner. Thank you so much for tuning in again. I'm excited for this episode. I've got a good friend of mine that I haven't caught up with in the past couple years. This is Andrew. Andrew has a lot to share about what he's been up to for the past few years and has a lot to offer and a lot of valuable just knowledge. So this is Andrew. I'll give him the floor. We're going to start off by, Andrew, introducing yourself for the people that don't know who you are. Just give me a quick idea of what you're up to, and then we'll go from there. So, all you, Andrew.
Sure, for sure. Thank you, Kestner. Once again, it's been a while since we caught up. Me and you, we go way back. First year freshman at UC Davis, 2013, that was 7 years ago. Agape dance team. So if you watched already, folks, episode 1 with Kevin Huang, we were also in that same dance team, Christian dance team at UC Davis. And it was more than just dancing on stage. Our relationship was really deep in walking together on our faith journeys, and really being present with each other with major turning points in our lives. A really fun story I like to share with everyone, or just like, I remember me and Kestner were talking about, I was getting to teaching and he was like, I'm trying to figure out what to do with my life.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of shared hey, just give it a shot, see where it goes. And then literally the next month, he flies off to Oklahoma for this training session. And then from Teach for America, he's in Hawaii. You're in Hawaii right now. That is crazy. Yeah. You just finished your master's, and that's awesome, man. So it's really good that we were able to reconnect. I know we've really worked hard to be where we are at right now. But I'm also on a very similar program, just like Kestner with Teach for America, except it's through the Catholic school system. It's called Place Corps at Los Angeles. It stands for Partners in Los Angeles Catholic Education. And practically, I go to get my master's in education at Loyola Marymount University. Nice. 2 years. Get to work full-time at an underserved Catholic school. So I'm a high school chemistry and algebra 1 teacher. And I also live in community. So that's kind of like the third component that makes it very unique, where I live in a convent with, right now it's 4 other teachers. Last year it was 8 other teachers all together in one place. Okay. And so we really kind of build a holistic support system, knowing that, whenever I come home, there's someone who understands where I'm coming from, and just being there for each other. And actually, the reason why I joined this program was I wasn't sure what to do with my life. After graduating from my last year of UC Davis, I thought I wanted to enter seminary, become a Catholic priest, but that last year I fell in love with this girl, and part of becoming a Catholic priest is that you have to take vows of celibacy. So that means no girl, and I was kind of just back and forth, and I was just kind of lost. So I just, when I entered and wanted to apply for the seminary, they actually told me pause. They said, we've seen many priests who kind of self-destruct and lead to scandal, kind of the stuff we see on the news. And it's because they don't really know how to fulfill their needs, and they didn't really discern whether it was the right fit for them. So before trying to identify Andrew as based on a Roman collar, I identify who's under the collar first. I identify who I am. And but then I was freaking out, man. I didn't know what to do with my life. So I didn't really have anything set up after last year undergrad. Didn't have any letters of rec. Didn't have any job application. I just moved home, and I was I don't know where to start. I literally feel like I was starting from high school all over again, living with my parents. Wow. And I just started substitute teaching, and that's kind of what got me just started thinking about teaching in general. How it was definitely challenging because I'm in a room with a bunch of just crazy young ones, and learning how to speak and to articulate and to organize and all that stuff. It's like, I could really learn in this. And then found out this program. I thought it was a really good middle ground of being able to discern, am I called to the religious life? Because, they also live in community with other, priests. They, at least in this certain form, I wanted to live by the religious life. But and they do their own ministry, so my teaching would be my ministry. But I also would be able to kind of have that space to still discover who I am, and kind of have an education, still be able to survive after graduation. And very fortunate that the university I'm at is a Jesuit university, so I was able to have a Jesuit spiritual director who was able to kind of just walk me through this. I call this training ground, this boot camp of this time. But interestingly, I came in with all these expectations of like, God, I'm going to show you who I am. I'm going to show you I'm loyal. I'm going to show you that I can do this. But the biggest lesson I learned from this first year of teaching was actually the opposite of that. It was actually like when I hit this wall, and I was just like, I was trying my best. I was like getting no sleep. I was not taking care of myself. And it was even affecting my relationships among like my community, because I would kind of just be like so obsessed with wanting to be good so much, and really show people that I really care. That it was breaking me. It was making me bitter. It was making me snappy. It was making me just not a person that I liked in myself even.
Yeah.
And it came to a point where like God just made me realize that there's nothing to prove, that I allow myself to be frustrated, allow myself to feel the pain, allow myself to feel helpless, because I was trying so hard to kind of force a smile on my face. When my coworkers would ask, how are you doing? I'll say like, I'm blessed, just because I wanted to turn everything into a positive. But that fake positivity actually became kind of toxic. It was just not allowing me to be authentic. And even my immediate surroundings and my community, they could tell that I was putting a face a lot, but wasn't actually expressing how I was feeling. So this entire first year, man, was just learning how to embrace my inadequacies, my incapabilities, and still recognize that it's not all about what I can do. It's about what we can do. When I feel weak, that's when I have to trust others that, I can trust that we can share this together, and I can share it with God and not hold it all in, So that's where I'm at right now.
Dude, that's good. I love how you talked about kind of when you started early on, when it came to figuring out what you wanted to do and how you want to go through it. I like how you mentioned that you're in like a similar situation as me, where you wanted to go into teaching, you didn't know so much about teaching, and you want to like test the waters about teaching. What I really like about your experience specifically is you have kind of the best of two different worlds, where you have the religious faith walk in ministry with your program, but you also have that traditional teaching aspect with it. You kind of touched upon this earlier when you were talking about it, but when you were talking about the process, but what made you want to go into this ministry religious walk in the first place? Because I know that we were coming from a place of religious background, right, with the Catholic faith, but what made you want to jump into this kind of out of college, basically?
Mm-hmm. So literally, man, it was just like I had to do something with my life, because just living an easy life where I was substitute teaching and kind of just coming home and not really, I didn't feel like I was going anywhere, and I wasn't really changing, and I was kind of starting to feel like a man child, kind of just feeding off my parents. And then I remember watching this dude. This guy was a Navy SEAL. He is crazy. His name's David Goggins, and he does these ultra marathons and literally surpasses his physical abilities. But he says like you only can grow with friction. And I saw teaching, man, and like when I did that long-term sub gig, I taught math. I was a psychology major doing science, like as an emphasis, and like I didn't know what the heck I was doing, but I noticed that in those really 2 months of chunks of just like staying up all night and trying to like know how to like manage a classroom with these 110 kids. Um, I really found something in myself that was stronger than I thought I could be. You know, when I thought I couldn't do it, but I was able to still kind of push through. And then at the end of the day, the students would just come in and just hang out. And that would literally mean the most to me, where I was like, you know, I'm not sure if you got anything. I'm not sure if you really cared, but the fact that at least my space that I provide for you could be something where you feel like you could be yourself.
Yeah.
Like that was really cool. And I knew that, you know, I still have previous students because I came from a small town. Like I'll see them at the supermarkets or everywhere else, and they're like, "Oh, hi, Mr. Tran," and I'm like, "Oh, you actually like me," you know?
Yeah.
But like they'll be happy to see me,
Yeah.
because they missed me, you know, because I was just a sub. But it's just really cool, you know, that like this ministry is a really selfless ministry, man. Like a lot of it goes unseen, because like you're just preparing so much for such different minds, not only for the students but also for the parents. And you know, when I first came to teaching, I imagined kind of, you know, that image in my head. Oh, I'm in front of the classroom, I'm preaching to the crowd, and they're all listening, and it's all like I'm doing such a good job. You know, I was so focused on me. You know, I was, even when I was thinking about the priesthood, I was like, oh, I'm on the pulpit and I'm preaching the word of God. And I notice now, man, like your respect that you get from that you earn is how well you represent the people. It's how well you represent the students. It's how well they love you. You know, how well you can love them. And I kind of, it took that breaking point when I realized like there was no one to prove. It's not about me. You know, it's about us. It's about we.
Yes.
That's when I recognized like, that's what this is all about. It's not about me.
And that's something I think about a lot too, right? When you're so focused on your career or when you're so focused on your job and you want to do the best that you can, right? We always want to be the best version of ourselves in our occupation or in our experiences. And we focus a lot on ourselves that we forget about the community aspect. We forget about the family aspect of, you know, I'm not the only one doing this. You know, there's a bunch of other people that are in this with me. There's a bunch of other people that are sharing the same experiences, and you forget to lean on those people a little bit more than you should because you're so focused on, well, how am I going to serve my students, or how am I going to serve my coworkers, or how am I going to serve my boss? And it always becomes about me, me, me. And you forget about the bigger picture too. So I really liked how you had that shift, going from substitute teaching, you know, kind of like you said, working in circles and not really getting much out of it. But then once you start to dive more into learning more about what it meant to be a teacher, and having those experiences from your students of being able to recognize you and stuff, and thinking about the bigger impact that you were making when you were just genuinely yourself, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
I really like how you start off with that
yeah,
experience first
yeah.
off.
And one thing I also think is cool to share is it's funny how when you think so much about others, and you think of how much like, oh, how can I be an impact to you? I imagine it kind of like me being this person where, you know, preaching to the crowd.
Right.
If you think so much about others all the time, you don't really ask yourself like, who am I? Like that internal voice that only you can speak, and where you are alone with God, and like I call it that hidden inner sacred space, that tabernacle where it's only me and God.
Yeah.
And if I allow others to kind of try to fill in that void, I actually end up becoming more selfish because I start expecting others to fill in that only thing that I can do myself, you know? So I recognize weirdly, it's this weird paradox where when I discover like, oh, it's like all I've been searching for was not necessarily, I didn't want circumstance. I wanted circumstances to be right, but what I was really searching for was that voice to say like, I am, I'm here. I am who I am right now. I don't know what I have to offer, but right now, like I might be offering like, oh, like I'm really struggling, or oh, hey, this is great, but it's really me, and that it comes from that inner place first, and then it naturally overflows, and then you see the other because you recognize in them they have that inner sacred space as well. That I can like, I'm not like it's that surrender. I'm not sure how I can reach you, but I trust that we call it God. Like I trust that God is in you, or I trust that you have that conscious, you have that inner voice in you that can speak for yourself. And I want to speak from that place so we can resonate on the same level. And it's so interesting. I just thought of that. Yeah.
No, that's a really intimate space to be in, because you reminded me that it's a balance, right? You have to really know yourself, and really know your own desires and your own struggles and your own weaknesses before that you can pour into other people's strengths or weaknesses, right? So you can't, like they say, cannot pour from a cup that's only half full, or there's nothing inside, right? You need to keep pouring into yourself. You need to know yourself before you're in a space where you can pour into others. So that's a good theme that I liked.
Mm-hmm.
So we're all over the place and I love it. How did you navigate your life with Jesus at the center of it? So I know you talked about it in parts, of just, going to God, going to Jesus when you need him the most, but going through the steps of teaching, or just even this program, because I really, I like the uniqueness of this program. How did you navigate kind of your life personally, but also keeping Jesus at the center of it?
Yeah. So before the program, when I was doing the 2 years kind of wandering about with substitute teaching, and I remember going to confession with this priest, and it was literally just a one-time thing. But he shared, I told him like I was discerning a lot. And he shared like, when I was a young kid, just like you, I was 23. Well, at the time I was 23. He was also 23 in the story. He lived kind of like this regular life. He had a girlfriend. They went to Vegas. Like there's like, I felt called to the priest, but like, Lord, I wanted to experience the life. I want to just be reckless and try everything. So him and his girlfriend, they kind of like went off, went to Vegas, partied, gambled, sex, all that stuff. And he tried to make the most of his life, but then he kind of just always found himself coming back to the tabernacle in church, which is kind of like the place where Jesus is at the Catholic churches. And just recognizing like that there was still that yearning for that kind of like where can I fill that space in me that's like seems to be gaping. It's a void.
Yeah.
And he told me, Andrew, as long as you invite Jesus in whatever you do, even if you might be doing crazy things or things that seem bad, but you always invite Jesus with you wherever you go, you will always learn something valuable from it that will always stay with you. And that's kind of what stuck with me through all this was, for me, I'm a little more hesitant than like the priest who I was talking with, but just like everything I do, I really invite Christ in what I do. It was like, Lord, I'm really going through this right now. Like, Lord, I really hate this right now. Lord, this is driving me nuts. I can't stand being exposed wherever I go, because when I'm teaching, I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. And these kids, they kind of just rebel against me. And like, oh, you're Mr. Tran, you're not even a real teacher. You can tell that, this is your first time. And also coming home, also seeing my community members when they're really tired and stressed, and we feel very vulnerable because we're just, it's just a hard day, and just constantly feeling that I was exposed, where all my life, I always worked hard to perform, to do good, to perfect well. I did piano since I was 6, all the way up to high school. Practice, recital, applause, yay. Yeah. I did band from middle school to high school. Practice, applause, yay. You're Andrew. We like you. I did gymnastics since like 8 years old. practice, practice, practice. Perform, you get a score 10.0, applause, you know? Like, I thought that I had to prove always who I am in order for people to love me. And even school, you know, I was always getting the grades as well. And I've recognized with humans, it's you know, it's not like that. And that, you know, kind of this entire process is not something that could be measured outside of me. You know, I have to find it in myself with Christ. Like, you know, Christ, I trust that you can still love me, even though I can't love myself right now. And I don't deserve this. I really don't. And I have to really be honest with him, because I can't make it up, you know, saying that God loves me, I don't care. Like, I know there are parts of me that, like, I could be so much better, I'm not good. And but just trusting that, you know, this that he can carry me through, because I've just seen throughout, you know, history, so many people who lived great lives. They said that, you know, it was in their fear that they found courage. It wasn't despite of fear, you know, it was from fear that they were able to be courageous. And I've now been learning to accept more that this fear, this anxiety, this, like, kind of just this gnawing feeling is actually energy for me to move forward. And I had to get into that place and be really honest, you know, with the Lord, because I recognize that a relationship with God is not just talking about what I want to hear. It's acknowledging that, God, I have no idea who you are. You're so beyond who I am. I look around. I don't know anything about the world. I don't know anything about myself. How the hell can I say that I know who I am? I'm only 25 years old. But, like, I recognize in order to meet God, I have to acknowledge that I don't know him. I don't understand his ways, and that that when I acknowledge that and I take a step forward with trust, I realize that's what a relationship is that you recognize, you know, about yourself, about the world, about God. I don't know, but I trust, and when I trust, I have to invite this possibility of fear, that in order to be conscious, in order to be aware, in order to be real, I can't make up being this good person. I have to actually acknowledge, like, there are parts of me that are not good in myself and in you and everything, but I'm still willing to trust. I'm still willing to try. I'm still willing to take my step forward, even though it could hurt, you know. And I realize that's what love is with everyone. You know, you love someone so much where you really offer all yourself to them, and you know that it will hurt if you lose them, or if they lose you, you know, or let go of you. And you have to allow that. You have to allow fear to be part of the picture.
Yeah.
You know, because fear and trust come hand in hand to allow courage.
Definitely.
I hope that answered the question. I kind of.
Yeah, no. There's like a space of vulnerability that's huge from what you're saying, right? When you're in a space where you're vulnerable, you could either go two ways. You can stay vulnerable and be fearful of what comes next, or you can be vulnerable and be hopeful and faithful for what comes next.
Mm-hmm.
And not saying that one is better than the other, because we always go through those spots of vulnerability, right? We're in this space where we don't know what to do and we don't know who to go to. So how do we respond to that? And sometimes we act out of fear, and that's fine. Sometimes we act out of fear or out of hope, and that's fine too. But being in that space where you trust in a bigger faith, where you trust in being fearful, but knowing that there's something else down the line, right? So there's this nice space, this sacred place that you say that's okay to be vulnerable. And in order to love other people, in order to love yourself, in order to move forward in whatever you're going through, you need to be vulnerable. And you need to be accepting of your circumstances, and you need to be, you know, have grace over your situation, because, you know, wherever you're at, like, God will meet you there. And I think that's a beautiful point that you make, is that in your times of vulnerability, in your times of fear, in your times of uncertainty, you let God work in those spaces, right? Because we cannot always fill those spaces on our own. We may think we can, and we may think that through our own thoughts and through our own actions and through our own, wisdom, that we can fulfill those needs or fulfill those uncertain times. But we only have so much of that, right? We have to lean on other factors, lean on, bigger things outside of us that have more control and, that fulfill us in a different way. So I like that.
Yeah, for sure. And I also like to add on is like I kind of see fear and humility. They're actually two sides of the same coin, and the decision that allows you to remain fearful or actually respond with humility is based on whether you allow your fear to be embraced by love, or do you allow your fear just to cover it up with something else rather than love. And I recognize, that in a relationship with God, we always have to begin with that, from that place of vulnerability, if we really want to be authentic, God or anyone else.
Yeah. Nice. So, like I said, you have a really unique experience. You've devoted a lot of time into wanting to pursue priesthood, wanting to pursue different religious avenues for your ministry and education. How have your sacrifices specifically, so your sacrifices in your specific journey, make it all worth it in following Christ? So how have your sacrifices been worth it?
Yeah. So actually, very, very funny that I had my grad school class yesterday online for summer school. And we were reading this book called Letters to a Young Education Reformer. It's by Frederick Hess. And it's talking about how can we change, systems in schools and stuff and all that stuff. But I saw something much deeper. And it made me think a lot about like sacrifices and pain and change and what that all means. So there was a little short story in there that I'd like to share with you.
Nice.
So in the book, it says, it's our mistakes that teach us wisdom. And from another book, in The Beggar King and the Secret of Happiness, Joel Ben Izzy tells the tale of wise Nazarudin's advice to an eager student. So the story goes like this. The student asked, what is the secret to attaining happiness? Nazarudin thought for a time, then responded, the secret of happiness is good judgment. Ah, said the student, but how do we attain good judgment? From experience, answered Nasruddin. Yes, said the student, but how do we attain experience? Bad judgment. So all my life, the reason why I've been so attracted to kind of just the religious life is because I meet these really old people, whether they're a priest or a lay person, but I can see that their age, I can see that they've been worn out, tired, but they have this glow in their eyes, and they speak from a place where there's life. And I kind of just like, it's like, how do you live a life of so many years, not allowing cynicism, bitterness, or fatigue kind of rule your life? Like, what is that? What is that life in you that I see it on your face? I could feel it by your presence. And I've always been admired of that, and that these people come from so much rich experiences, times of triumph and times of trial. And all my life, I desire this wisdom, this strength. And I first approached it with, wanting to prove so much, like trying to gain it as if it's something I could take it away.
Yeah.
It's not like that. But I noticed that in the path to wisdom and this holiness, this wholeness, is actually, I have to take a step forward, even if I'm going to make a mistake, even if it's going to cause someone suffering or pain, even if I'm going to mess up really badly. But I only learn if I really authentically try. And it will be, honestly, a lot of the stuff I learned the most, with all the sacrifice and kind of like trying things out and things don't work, was actually from bad judgment. When I was with that girl, when I didn't really know how to commit to her, and then actually right now, I actually don't feel called to the priesthood. The Lord is asking me, um, in your heart, you actually desire a partner, and that's where I'm at right now. And I was like, oh, I sacrificed so much, like
Yeah.
to live this. I dedicated so much of my life to it, even in relationships, um, and but I gave it my all. I really gave it my all, and it's still a treasure to see that, like, no, not yet. Take another step forward. And I would feel so frustrated because I thought like I was building this image of who I wanted to be, but then now it's all shattered again.
Yeah.
But I notice it's not about the image. It's not about this fantasy I have in my head. It's about this process, this movement, this feeling. All my life I kind of live up here, but now I'm learning how to accept and live from here
Mm.
in my heart. And kind of just I now understand and look at, when you ask, is sacrifice worth it? I notice now that the currency of worth, what makes something worthy, is how much pain and sacrifice you gave yourself to it. Because the fact you could feel pain from something you strongly identify with means you've identified with it.
That's good.
So that when it hurts, you hurt.
Yeah.
So I notice like that's your worth. How much you give yourself with the pain shows how much it's worth it. And even, you know, even the sacrifices, it didn't really, like I said, it led me to places where I didn't expect. I when I first thought with sacrifice, like, Lord, I'm going to show you, like, I'm going to sacrifice for you that I could be this person. But now the Lord was asking me, Andrew, sacrifice this image in your head of who you think you are. And be honest, authentic, stupid, vulnerable, with me. And I think the greatest sacrifice is that I'm learning how to be myself and love myself, not on my own terms, but just someone greater than myself that I cannot explain.
Yeah.
Somehow every morning says, Andrew, today's another chance. Yesterday's done. Let's start a new day together. That's the gospel, man. That's the Christ message of saying that all your sins are forgiven. The past. Let's move on. Today's a new day. You're a new person today, and let's discover something new. So I kind of see all this sacrifice. I thought I was trying to climb this ladder of ascending, but I notice now, like, the path to wisdom, the path to holiness, the path of holiness is actually a descending direction. It's to go deeper. It's to allow to feel pain more. It's allow yourself to be kind of lost more. It's allow yourself to be kind of angry more, but angry with God and sharing it all with God and allowing God to be part of the journey. Embrace it all with love. So, just even thinking about it, those who might be listening to this podcast, like, God, what does it mean to believe in God? Isn't that silly? And I thought about it a lot. It makes sense that the belief in God is absurd. It is. Like, life is stupid, man. Like, people die for the stupidest reasons, and we can't explain why. But it's when we face the absurdity of life and we take the leap of faith to still say, I trust that there's still meaning to life, or I trust that you can still love me, oh Lord.
Yeah.
That this absurdity, there's still value, there's still meaning, there's still something hidden and beautiful in it. And I recognize, like, yeah, man, like, believing in God forces you to look at absurdity and say, I still trust.
Yeah. I resonate with that a lot because, we all have our own sacrifices that we've given up ever since we were kids, right? Or even generations beyond us. Our families go through tons of sacrifice, and we, in our own trials and tribulations, go through our own sacrifices, whether it's, basically anything, small or large. And in those times of sacrifice, it's really natural to see sacrifice as a way of something physical, right? Something that you have to physically go through, something that you have to physically give up. But I really like how you said I had to sacrifice a way of thinking.
Mhm.
That's another deeper level of sacrifice, because it's nothing tangible. It's nothing that you can physically point out to someone saying, this is what I've sacrificed, or even, you know, maybe put into a story. It's something that you have to feel. And it's something that goes on in your head, where you had this image of something, you had this image of yourself, you had this expectation of something, but someone, God was telling you, give that up. You know,
Mhm.
I have a different image for you. I have a different idea of what you should be, of what you could be. And in that image is where you're going to find peace, where you're going to find meaning. And it's not until you sacrifice an image of yourself that you can get this fulfillment outside of that. So, when we talk about sacrifice, it does not always need to be a physical, monetary, or sacrifice that you have to give up. Sometimes it's just the way that you perceive yourself, or a habit that you have throughout the day, and or a way of thinking, or a mindset. And like you said, tweaking that, changing that, having a little step of faith that something better is on the other side. So I really resonate with that. I feel that all the time, every day, of just, when I think about everything that's going on and all the struggles that we're going through, we deal things out of love, we deal things out of mercy, we deal things out of justice, of what, should be right. And that's how we move forward, through love, mercy, and justice. So um, I love a lot of what you said, Andrew. A lot of themes about, knowing yourself, knowing who you are in your walk with God, or even in your walk without God, being honest with yourself, being okay with the struggles and the vulnerabilities, and going through that descent, like you said, in order for you to get better, in order for you, um, is a powerful message. And just being okay with being honest with yourself, I think that's a huge part that I need to hear, and other people need to hear too. It's being honest with yourself is going to bring a lot of things that you may not like about yourself. Maybe it's going to bring out a lot of ugly things, but in understanding those ugly things, and understanding those things that you could work on, you're building humility. You're building a better version of yourself. And you can't do that unless you accept those things in your life. So I thank you for those words of wisdom. Um, a lot of people need to hear that. And it's been an honor going and hearing about your journey. You have a very unique perspective, and just experience when it comes to walking the faith, um, in ministry, in the religious Catholic walk, but also in teaching too. So I understand you on the teaching part, and I appreciate for everything that you said today.
For sure, man. And it's all of us, man. You have something wonderful to share, and I can't wait for all the other guests you're gonna have on this show. Catch up with Kestner.
Thank you.
I'm just really sharing in this sacred space that we can be together.
Well, thank you so much, Andrew. I appreciate you. Appreciate everything that you had to offer today, and I'm so glad that we got the chance to catch up.
Sure, man. Appreciate you too.
Cool. Until the next time, Andrew. Later.